How have we gotten to the point where you have sincere Christians, good people like that, are making the case that Jesus wants more bombing? What is that?
Well, also look at Jesus himself, he was persecuted in his lifetime by the leaders of Israel, the leaders at the temple. He was persecuted by his own people's leaders, and all of the prophets throughout the Old Testament. Who were they persecuted and killed by? The leaders of their day. It's throughout the entire Bible. So it's not uncommon that this would be happening. The secular government should not be telling Christians in America what they should and shouldn't do with their tax dollars, with their military, and with who their allegiance should go to.
Do you really want to take on AIPAC? This might be my only opening. Okay, strap in. The first thing that you need to understand is the difference between traditional lobbyist organizations and us. Most lobbyists are businesses that make money representing clients. But you found a loophole. AIPAC is an ideologically based lobbyist nonprofit that's funded by donors. Functionally similar to the NRA. It's just instead of being pro-firearms, you're pro-Israel? Nope, we are for the advancement of the US-Israeli relationship in ways that enhance security for both countries. Because representing a foreign government means that you'd have to register under FARA. Correct, and that would be bad. Should I really care that much about a government regulation? The thing is that we have extraordinary bipartisan influence over US politics, which is why you donate so much to re-election campaigns. But I mean, that's pretty common for lobbyists, right? Nope. We don't donate. We have a very unique relationship with our wealthy donors where if we tell them to support a candidate, they show up. Oh, because of the campaign contribution limits. Exactly. Our ability to wield our donors is how we fund campaigns, our super PAC, even a nonprofit that makes all of this possible that we'll talk about later, but they are the bread and butter of our power, which you use to shape Congress. We keep scorecards on different representatives, how you vote on things. If you piss us off, we will punish you. Oh, what, like ex-Mossad? Oh, no, we primary you. That can't be that effective, right? Especially if you're going after an incumbent. It is wildly effective. UDP spends more money in Democratic primaries than any other super PAC. Most of the time, if UDP backs a candidate, they win. Well, why are you so focused on Democratic primaries? Well, there seems to be a growing problem with anti-Semitism in progressive circles. Take, for example, Jamal Bowman or Andy Levin. Oh, right, I remember that. They were both critical of Israel, they supported conditions on aid. You backed both of their opponents and they both lost, but I can't find anything they said that was anti-Semitic. We never said they did. You just did. No, I didn't. We did the same thing during the election. We put out an ad talking about a rise in anti-Semitism, and then we asked viewers, are you going to stand up to Jamal Bowman? It's just a heavy insinuation. You asked why we're controversial, and I warned you about making this video. It kind of feels like you're weaponizing a really important word as a way to avoid accountability, which is then cheapening the word itself. Are you justifying anything bad towards us? Unequivocally, no. What I am saying is that I'm going to get plenty of that comment for trying to have a conversation that at its core is about an organization that looks like it might potentially be influencing our government on behalf of a foreign government. You love wading into controversial topics.
תמונות ותעודות הלידה בוואטסאפ. אחי לא ענתה. באותו הזמן קיבלתי שיחה מאחד השכנים ששאל אם אני בסדר. עניתי, אני בסדר. והוא אמר לי, הדירה שאתה שוכר הופצצה. מהרתי וליבי פועם מפחד ודאגה לגורל משפחתי, עד שהגעתי לדלפק הקבלה של בית החולים, וחלק מהשכנים אמרו לי ברעד, הם בתוך מקפיאי המתים. לא עברו 10 דקות מאז הוצאתי תעודת הלידה, ופתאום אני מוציא להם תעודות פטירה. התמוטטתי. בעזה יש 17,038 תינוקות שהמערכת שלך הרגה, ביניהם 825 תינוקות מתחת לגיל שנה. בעזה היום 35,055 תינוקות יתומים. הדם של כולם ירדוף אותך, ואתה בעזות מצח תוהה על כך שאתה מואשם בבית הדין בהאג. בנימין נתניהו, מהו החזון שלך? מה החזון שלך תגיד לי? מזה 30 שנה אתה רוצח סדרתי של השלום.
לא, עצור. רד מהדוכן מיד. רד מהדוכן מיד. להוריד אותו עכשיו.
מה החזון שלך?
רוצח סדרתי בקפלן, לא פה.
רוצח סדרתי של השלום זה אתה.
רד מהדוכן. רוצח סדרתי, רד מפה, חצוף. צא מהאולם. חבר הכנסת גלעד קריב, יש מילים שלא יישמעו מעל הדוכן הזה. רוצח סדרתי הוא אחד מהם. תודה רבה. חבר הכנסת גלעד קריב, בבקשה.
Because we're Jews, it's being done in our name. We have to stand up and yell. It's not anti-Semitism to be against Zionism. On the contrary, we are attacked. Even when I went out in New York, my car tires were slashed, the windows, the mirrors broken, and so forth. But we don't care. We're going out anyway. Wherever there is a large Jewish community, wherever there's a very religious Jewish community, even if it's not large, they will be in opposition to the existence of the Zionist state of Israel because it is antithetical to Judaism. Zionism is a movement that started around 150 years ago. That's just really recently, relatively recently. And it's a movement of people who were totally estranged from the Jewish religion. They were nationalists. They weren't practicing the religion as a whole. And they wanted just a convenient community, a land, a nation that they should feel comfortable and proud of themselves. The Jews never attempted, even though we went through hardships, the Inquisition, the Crusades, and we suffered a lot, but we never attempted to reestablish a Jewish sovereignty, a Jewish nationhood, a Jewish kingdom, because we know it's verboten, it's forbidden, it's just not acceptable according to Judaism to have our own state. Remember, the religion is 3,000 years ago. But 2,000 years ago, we were sent into exile by God. We have to be loyal citizens in every country we reside. And we're not to attempt to leave exile because it's a godly declared exile. Jews lived with a distinctly different religion than the Muslims, but it was never a problem. In fact, it's more than that. The Muslims took in the Jews by the Inquisition, where they tried to torture Jews to convert to Christianity. It was the Muslim countries that embraced the Jews and took them in, and the Jews were able to flourish. They realized in order to get a lot of massive support from the world, evangelistic Christians, Jews who don't know the Torah, don't know their laws, who don't practice the laws, so they knew they'll go to Palestine and they'll be able to tell everybody, oh, this is the God-given land to the Jewish people. They automatically started breaching and transgressing the laws of the Torah, not to kill and not to steal, not to oppress a people, because they wanted to make their national home in a land that was inhabited by the Palestinian people. Now, right at the beginning, when they said, oh, it's an empty land. And if anybody stood up against them, they said, because you hate the Jews and you're an anti-Semite. They treat us like the worst terrorists in the world. When a boy or girl turns 17, they become a criminal, even if they're not demonstrating, because we refuse to serve in the IDF. They yell at me as a Holocaust denier when my grandparents were killed in Auschwitz. My father escaped Hungary when the Nazis came in. My father was in Auschwitz. Almost the entire families were wiped out. I live and breathe Holocaust. How dare they claim that we're Holocaust deniers? But that's just part of that, the vile Zionism, that they have the power of the most expensive PR and the power of AIPAC that influences, put pressure on politicians to be silent. That is what they're afraid of. The people who stand up and reveal the truth, that Judaism is a beautiful, and we live together with Muslims, and we are thankful to Muslims, and we don't want what's happening to the Palestinians. We cry with the Palestinian suffering. That is what they're afraid of. The world will wake up.
Palestinians were like, yes, Jews, Armenians, you're both welcome, come. Of course we'll let you in.
My maternal grandmother was born in Haifa because after the Armenian genocide, the stories that my grandmother told my mother about how the Palestinian Muslims treated Armenian refugees, who were obviously overwhelmingly Christian, was incredible. They were welcoming.
As Jews moved to Palestine, Palestinians were welcoming them because they saw the Jewish people coming in as brothers and sisters escaping persecution.
To Zionists here and everywhere, These people came on ships holding up signs about World War II saying, please, we're refugees, let us into your home. And the Palestinians opened their doors to them. This is the story of Muhammad Hadid and Bella Hadid. Yeah, the model, Gigi Hadid. His mother had just given birth. They allowed these refugees, these Polish refugees, to live in their homes as refugees because they wanted to help them following a world war.
We let you into our homes when your own countries tried to murder you, and everyone else turned you away. We fed you and we clothed you. We gave you shelter, and we shared from the bounty of our land with you.
And then one day,
and when the time was right,
Palestinians who were letting Jewish Europeans live in their homes come home and they find the locks changed. And they were like, wait, why can't I get into my home? And then the family, the Israeli family on the inside just simply wouldn't open the door and wouldn't talk to them, wouldn't let them in.
They came back to their houses and the doors were locked. They came home, the doors were locked, and guns were being held, and they were told, leave right now, or some soldiers are going to come murder you.
You kicked us out of our homes and homeland. Then you killed and robbed and burned and looted our lives.
Do you guys understand? Just go through that in your head.
And so, in the mind of the Palestinian, this was just an upending of, wait a minute, we welcome you in, we put you in our house, we fed you, and then the first opportunity you had, you stole our home from us. They couldn't reconcile this.
You carved out our hearts because it is clear that you do not know how to live in the world without dominating others. But the world is finally glimpsing the terror we have endured at your hands for so long. And they are seeing the reality of who you are and who you've always been.
Imagine your family has lived on that land for hundreds and hundreds of years. And then you say, oh, you know what, the Ukrainian war is happening right now, I feel really bad. I'm gonna allow a Ukrainian to live in my house, maybe here in Tennessee. And you allow them and you share with them, and you do this out of the kindness of your heart. And one day you come back to your house and the doors are locked, and those refugees that you let in are telling you that if you try to open that door, you are going to die. That's a fact. No one can dispute that. There was no money, there was no trade, there was no conversation. They were effectively hijacked in their own homes. So the entire story of Israel has been immoral.
When I show you what I'm about to show you, your mind will be blown. You're going to be blindsided. Every single Israeli prime minister has a fake name. Did you know that? I was just talking about Ben Gurion. Do you know what his original name is? It's Gruen. Gruen. He changed it to make it sound more Jewish and sound more Middle Eastern. Do you know what Netanyahu's real name is? It's not Netanyahu, it's Milkovsky. I swear to God, go and look it up. You'll find Milkovsky. That's his real name. Remember what Israelis are. Israelis are European Jews. They don't come from Palestine, but they want you to make you believe. They want to make believe and make you believe that they come from this area, that they are indigenous to the land, that they're so Jewish, right? Even though they have no connection. So they changed the names. Here's another one. Moshe Sharat. His name is Chertok originally. You've got Levi Eshkol. Eshkol was Shklonik. So he changed it from Shklonik to Eshkol. Then you have Yigal Alon. His original name, Peikovitz. Golda Meir, Israel's first female prime minister. Her real name is not Golda Meir. It's Mabovich. Mabovich.
Golda my ass.
More like mad bitch. We have Yitzhak Rabin, right? His name is not Rabin. It's Rubitsov. Are you seeing the pattern? These are Eastern European names. Not Palestinian, not Jewish, not Middle Eastern. They're Eastern European, okay? They're not Palestinian. They don't come from this region. Yitzhak Shamir. He's a great one. You know, Yitzhak Shamir, he's on the wanted poster because he was wanted by the British police in Palestine for terrorism. But they don't tell you that. So Yitzhak Shamir, his original name is Yezernitsky. Yezernitsky. Shimon Peres. Persky. Netanyahu, I already told you, Malikovsky. I think I said Milkovsky, excuse me, it's Malikovsky. Never, it's the same point. Ehud Barak is Brog. So B-R-O-G. Brog. He changed it to Barak. Ariel Sharon. His original name is Shinerman. Shinerman. He changed it to Sharon. And Yair Lapid, who's, you still see him changing posts, his original name is Lampel. So he changed it from Lampel to Lapid.
Well, hardly. It was the first and I think the only instance in history when one people granted to a second people the land that belonged to a third people. And in the era of colonialism, we didn't even possess it as a colony at the time. It was a part of the Ottoman Empire. It was not ours to give away, but we gave it away to a group of European colonial Jews. They never made any secret of that. They met in Basel in the late 19th century, but they met many times in the United States, in Baltimore and many other places. The newspaper headlines are extant in which they described themselves as a Jewish colonial movement. And they were begging the British Empire to give them somewhere, anywhere, that they could found their Zionist settler state in. And they were in advanced talks with the British Empire about Uganda, about the Seychelles. They negotiated very seriously to have their state in Argentina, in Patagonia. That would have given rise to a different kind of PLO in the years to come. They were ready to found their settler state everywhere. They saw these white Europeans building settler colonial states in Australia, in Canada, in South Africa, Rhodesia, and so on. They wanted a piece of the action. It was only later that they invented ex post facto a religious justification for building their state in Palestine. As a matter of fact, all the leaders of the early Zionist movement were atheists. They didn't believe in God, but they believed that God gave them Palestine. It's a monstrous fabrication that a moment's study, 25 minutes of study will give you the whole antecedent of this thing. So they arrived in a country which already had a people living in it. It was called Palestine. The people living in it were Palestinians. They were mainly Muslim, but a very substantial number were Christian. And there were even a considerable number of Jews who had always lived there, who had never been scattered across the world and then hunted by pogrom and witch hunt. The Jews in Palestine lived in amity with the Christians and Muslims there. Suddenly, millions of European Jews that neither the United States nor Europe wanted to take. These were people straight out of the Holocaust. But the doors of the United States and Great Britain and France were slammed shut in their faces, and they were told to go to Palestine. And they took other people's land, other people's houses, other people's farms, orchards, and the people who owned these properties and lived there for millennia were turned into refugees over a very short period of time. In the end, almost 1 million of them were driven out of the country altogether, and the remainder became second, third-class citizens in their own country, living in refugee camps. So in a place like Jenin, for example, you'll have heard of it, Jenin, Jenin, there's a big refugee camp there. And from that refugee camp, the inmates of what is effectively a concentration camp can see their own houses being lived in by Jewish people who came from New York, who came from Moscow or London or Paris. They can see people who've just arrived as immigrants picking their oranges off their trees in the gardens of their homes, whilst they live now 3 generations, 4 generations in squalor, regularly visited by extreme violence from settlers and from the Israeli state themselves. It is the reason I've spent 50 years in this cause is not because I set out to do so, but because I went there 50 years ago, and what I saw there affected me so much, I consider it would be a moral betrayal not to speak out about it, not to tell other people about it, so that we might find at least some modicum of justice. This is the very day, Jimmy, in which the Camp David Accords were signed in Washington between Sadat, the Egyptian president, Begin, a former terrorist, Prime Minister of Israel, under the auspices of Jimmy Carter, signed on the lawn of your White House. And that Camp David Accord was supposed to lead to peace and amity and a modicum of justice for the Palestinian people and an end to Israeli occupation of other people's territories. And of course, none of that has happened. Everything has gotten worse. I've been in this 50 years. This is the worst moment I have experienced. 300 kids in 51 minutes. I mean, that breaks all records.
You hate the Jews who obey the Torah. I was never in Palestinian state. Leave Palestine, you Zionist. Go for it, go for it. You make a genocide. You make a Holocaust. Right now, you make a genocide. You murdered thousands of Palestinians. You murdered thousands of men and women. You are not Jewish. You are not Jews. You are so misinformed. You want to kill the Jews who obey the Torah. You hate the Torah. You hate the Jews who obey the Torah.